Hello, and welcome to the 10 tips in 60 minutes with focus on automating your notifications. For those of you who have never met me, my name is Bev Underwood, and I am one of the customer success managers here at Skillable. So on today's agenda, what we'll do is we're going to explore the world of automated notifications. And we'll discover why they're useful when not only useful to you, but to your time and to your users. What we'll do is we'll take a look at the framework so you can understand how automated notifications work and the process behind it. Then, importantly, we're going to jump to those top 10 tips when you are designing and implementing your automated notifications. And then what I've done is gone ahead and created some quick and simple automated notifications that we see most often used by customers like yourself. And then finally, we'll finish up with some Q&As. And if I've missed anything, I'd be happy to re-explore those for you. So automated notifications, well, what are they and why are they really important? And so when we look at automated notifications, there are features that's built into the TMS. And to me, they're quite often underutilized. They're in essence a communication tool that we have built within our platform. It's a way for you guys to notify a number of your users, depending on the role within the TMS, but you can send out mass communications to those users easily, quickly. And when you set them up, it can be the initial setup can be quite time consuming because you've got to go through a number of configurations and settings, and you need to make sure, like, does it work? And we'll get into those, but they're useful because we have an action trigger or a timed trigger, and they send those notifications out, and they can save you so much time by taking away that manual process of having to send those notifications out. I'm sure, like the rest of you guys, my time is very limited. And if I can rely on system to be able to do something for me, as simple as send out a quick notification, I would totally take advantage of it. And the TMS has that feature built right in. So let's kind of look at a little bit more of the framework behind building your notification process. So with any notification process, we have a trigger. And a trigger can be an event or it can be a time. We need to also understand, like, what are the trigger filters? So what's the notifications being sent? And then who triggers those notifications? And then finally, who do those notifications then go to? You build in your email templates. So we'll discover how building your emails is really important, making sure that we add in those texts and information. And we also include all of the people we need to include, along with adding subjects and those messages and making them specific. And then we kind of look at like entity restrictions. And so entity restrictions can vary, and it can vary depending on the variable that's been selected as the trigger. So as we look at this actual framework, we can see that the trigger is the cost. And so you can change that so that organization will always remain, but we can change the restriction by class or other items. And so we just kind of learned a little bit about notifications, right? And what they are and how the framework is designed. So let's look at the Skillable's top 10 tips. And we have come up with 10 tips that we find most people will use, and they'll be kind of helpful as you build out your automation notifications. And especially if this is the first time you have ever considered building out notifications, this is the number one process when you're building out that you guys should really look at. And so my first tip to you guys is picking the right trigger. Um, the trigger is what causes the notification to be sent, and it's really important to understand that there are two types of triggers when you're building your notifications, and understanding how each one performs, and knowing that you pick the right one when you want to create that notification to be sent. So when we look at action-based triggers, those are notifications that are based on actions that are performed within our platform. And an example of this would be, let's say, a learner has completed an assignment. Well, the action trigger is what's completed to send the notification when the course assignment has been completed. Whereas the time-based trigger relies on time. And it's as simple as that, right? So it's triggered by a specific time that you guys set. And an example of this would be, let's say you want to notify a group of students that the class starts within the next 24 hours. And so the time trigger is at 24 hours prior to the class time. So there are different ways that you can actually send these triggers and what they do. And then the most that we see is action-based triggers. They're the most popular, often with the operations manager and instructors, because they can send out information based on the performance. It's something that's happened within the platform. But it's good to know, like, that there are two triggers that you can choose from. And my last point for this one is, and it's funny because it's be sure to click on the plus add when you're adding a trigger. So when you go into the platform and you click on create your notifications, you're going to be presented with a number of options, and you'll see triggered by, and it's going to be a drop down. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to click that one, and you're going to keep building, and then you're going to go, hey, I'm writing in my notifications, and there's no information, but I can see it says replacement texts. I don't understand. If you go back to add in your trigger and you click plus add, all of a sudden, when you now go to your notifications in that tab and you look, you'll see all of the replacement texts that are available. And we'll kind of dive into that as we go a little bit further in my tips. So that's always that those are my number one things to remember when you're building out. The second is understanding really who the trigger is that's notifying, right? So there are two main people that can trigger the notifications. And so when we think of users, we think of basic users, your students. So is it those that are sending the trigger, or is it your administrators? And the easiest way that you can think of this as an administrator is anyone but a student. So that includes your instructors, your content creators, your operations managers. And so knowing who and what performance is going to create that trigger is important. So for example, if you're going to do action-based for a course was completed, it's going to be the user that triggers that, because it's a student that has performed the action. The third and fourth are really important. So understanding who is going to receive your notification. And so part of building out the process of your notifications is knowing who your target audience is for that notification. And in the TMS, notification recipients are set by roles and permissions on the account. And while some roles are standard for all users, there are some trigger events that are limited based on user roles. And so an example would be users otherwise known as learners, instructors. Who are you trying to get this message to? So you can build, you can find your trigger. We'll stick with a student completing a course. It's a student who triggered it, but who's going to receive that notification? Maybe there is somebody that needs to know that this student has finished this course. And so when you want to notify who the people who are getting the notification, you need to make sure that you select the right users. And then we look at, well, how does that notification get sent? Right? When we look at it, it is sent from our server. And what happens is our server gets on the back end, this student has done this, it's triggered this, now we're about to send this email, and we send the email. But we ask that you always include a valid email address when you're building this out in the front line, right? Because if you have an invalid email address, or for example, it comes from automated notifications at skillable.com, sometimes that can be read and put in spam. So your user never receives it. They never receive that email. But if you put a valid email address in there, so for example, if I was to put bev.underwood@skillable.com, I can guarantee that that's going to be delivered, and the chances of it falling inside of the spam or being rejected or failing to send is very limited because that's a valid email address. We try not to use those generic ones. You may experience some problems, but the email address really is just a valid one that can get it to the end user without causing any issues along the way. And so that's really quite an important one to always remember. You won't receive it, like you're not going to receive the notification. It's going to look exactly like it does when you send an email. So that's a really neat way to think about it is I got to put my email address in here. If you are, let's, for example, say an operations manager and your company doesn't want you to use your email address just because, as you know, times change, maybe you move on, maybe you need to create an operations. You can put an alias in there as well if needed. This then leads me to my fifth and sixth tips for you guys is you build your notifications out. And again, if you're brand new, you've never seen it, it is a template that you go in just like you do when you build a course or a class, and you've got lots of things to select from. So I'm going to send, for example, sticking with my student has completed a task, but I want my instructor to know. But sometimes there's other people that need to know that that person has also completed that task. And so you can add the other user, so somebody who may not be within our platform, right? They may not have an account in the TMS. So now we need to notify them. So let's think of student. Let's think that it's the instructor needs to know, but also you need to notify the administrative team. Maybe it's someone who keeps track of who and who has not completed their tasks. And you can do that, and you can do it by simply adding their email address in the CC. So you don't always have to have the notifications sent to people within the platform. Maybe it's somebody who's not got an account in the platform. You can add their email address. So that's really good one to remember as you're building these out. Make sure you are hitting all of the people who need to be notified when an action, either time or action-based, that trigger happens. The sixth, I probably would have maybe bumped this up a little bit, but my sixth one is be sure to include relevant information. And the way that we think of this is don't make your automated notifications generic. Be specific. Get right down to the nitty gritty, because I'm sure a lot of you have sent out notifications that, you've had to go in and copy and paste and remove certain elements, like this is the class and I've got to put this one in. Well, automated notifications can do that for you. And we can also help you because we can help relevant information. And I might be a student who has, maybe I'm registered in 3 or 4 classes, and you say class has been cancelled, and I'm like, I don't know which class it is. Or, hey, you didn't get accepted into one of your classes. Which one? I applied for 4 of them. I don't know which one I didn't get in. So make sure when you are doing that, that you include all the relative information. Don't make it generic. Don't just say the class is finished. The next tip I'm going to show you, though, is going to help with that. It's going to help you understand, like, how can you make that information very specific. And that's using the replacement tokens to save time. So, and the replacement tokens, replacement tests, is a way that you guys can actually use tokens to look in the system, replace it with the value. And how that works, and it's really, really, really cool, is, for example, I would write, hello, I'd have student's name, your class, and I would have the student's class has been cancelled. And what you can do is those replacement tokens is going to look in the system and they're going to go, okay, what's the student name? Student name's Bev. So it's going to say, hello, Bev. It's going to look to see what class has been cancelled, and it's going to find the class name, and it's going to say, your class, Microsoft 101, has been cancelled. And so when you use replacement tokens, it really, really does allow for you to make that information very, very relative and very, very specific. And I advise any of you guys to go in and take a look, and different triggers. So thinking back to those trigger events and the actions that they do have different replacement tokens. So you may have, in the classic environment, maybe it's all to do with classes. So it's a lot of information. It's got a lot of class related information that you need to put in there. And this is really going to help you save time, because you don't have to copy and paste. 2, once you have copied and pasted, you have to take out that information and change it. This is going to do it all for you. And it's really a great feature, and I love it. And I will be happy to show you what those replacement tokens look like, along with the add-in piece, because maybe that didn't make sense if you've never looked in the system before. 8th one is double checking all of your settings. There are a number of settings that can impact whether or not this notification gets sent. And so your organization availability will determine whether or not the notifications are enabled. So making sure that if you want to be able to utilize this feature, that they are turned on and that they are available for your organization. The next one for double checking the features is making sure that students, learners, instructors, anyone who creates an account within our system has them switched on. So if you create the user or edit a user, just scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see there's potentially maybe 4 options at the bottom, and then little checkpoints, the little check marks. You would click the one that says enable notifications to know that students, learners, instructors, anyone who creates an account with us or anyone who has an account with us can in fact edit those. So they can turn them off. So if they turn them off, even though you send those notifications, because the system sees it as, hey, we're sending it, wait, this person turned them off, it won't get sent. So that's always something to keep in the back of your mind. Most people shouldn't switch them off. Most people probably don't even realize that that option is there. But that would be one thing I would definitely recommend for you guys to keep on and say, hey, don't turn these off. This is a way for us to communicate with you quickly and efficiently. The next one is making sure that the user has a valid email address. And I'm sure you guys, hopefully, have all got in the system, all your users have valid email addresses. However, there are a number of organizations and a number of people who use a generic email address. So, for example, student1@skillable.com, and it's assigned to me, and now that's mine. But I never have access to that. It's just basically a alias name that allows me to create access to my account. Say Jane has student2@skillable.com. If those email addresses are popped in there just as aliases, it will not send that email. It'll send it, but it's going to send it to wherever that email alias belongs to. And so Jane and I are now sat in the dark wondering, well, this class has been cancelled. It would have been nice to know. So always make sure that when your students, learners, instructors, anyone that's going into the platform always has a valid email address, one that they can verify, one that they can receive emails to. And then if you do decide to set this up for your classes, so you want to make sure that your class gets notified, when you're building out the class, make sure that you click right at the bottom. Again, I think it's under basic information. When you're building it out, make sure that you have enable notifications available on the class. Just keep in mind, it should send it, but it's always a good idea just to add that, and it's right there for you. And it's a step that keeps you kind of in line. Number 9 and 10, super, super basic 9 and 10. Couldn't get this any more clearer. Always test, then enable. It's super important that you test your notifications when you're building them out. Create an account, do what you want, make sure you get what you need. Make sure that when you complete a task, that it triggers that event and the email gets sent. Make sure your timing works, because the last thing you want to do is say, oh, I set it up because telling my students that they have a class in 24 hours and it never got sent. So always test your notifications. It's the best way. And once you've tested them, you need to then go ahead and enable them. Enable it so that then you're ready. You're saying, hey, it's all done. And after that, you never have to look at these notifications again. Once you have done all those steps, and like we said, the initial setup can be quite time consuming, but it's still better than having to do it every single time, every single option that the students are then, I don't want to have to keep going and going, oh, I got to send you this notification. So my quick and simple automated notifications, ones that you can build real fast, maybe ones that you're thinking of as we've gone through this presentation, this demo, is, well, what kind of notifications can I set up? Well, we look at the left side and we can look at who is our target audience, and then we can look at what are the notifications. And so I built you some really simple ones, like you can have it so that the student is notified when a class has been cancelled or rescheduled. Maybe you want to send them a notification when a course assignment has been created, or most importantly, when is it about to expire? I'm sure lots of you guys have experienced that, where you've sent out a course assignment, student hasn't done it, and it's about to expire. You can send a notification to say, hey, you only have 7 more days left on your course assignment. You need to go in there and get it completed. That's one of the ones that's used quite often. Link to a survey post-class. So maybe at the end of the class, you send out a survey to say, hey, how was the class? How was the instructor? What did you like? What didn't you like? All those kind of fun things that you want to figure out and find to make your class a better class every time. You can do that by adding a notification to say, hey, this class is finished. Go ahead and don't forget to complete your post-class survey. For some people, right, if you don't use subscriptions and you don't use keys and subscription keys, event keys. Maybe you are creating accounts. Maybe you're creating them an account to get into the system. And so you can actually have it so that the trigger action, remember this is an action one. So when an account has been created, it will send a notification to that user's email address that you popped in that, hey, here's your username and here's your password to access your account. And that's a really neat one. One that we've highlighted that's really important is whether or not a student has been enrolled successfully in a class. So again, that's another action trigger. Were they able to successfully enroll in that class? And that's a good way to keep your students informed. Yes, you were enrolled. No, you didn't. There's none of this. Well, I'm not really sure where I'm supposed to. Switching to the instructor, right? So now we're thinking of what kind of notifications can we send to our instructors? Maybe it's the class status. Has it been completed? Great. Has it been cancelled? Great. Has it been updated? Great. There are all ways that you can engage your instructor and let them know if you've made any changes. And then really cool one that I think, again, is probably underutilized is when the instructor has been assigned to a class. So now that instructor is getting notification, hey, I've been assigned to this class now. How many of you actually end up sending that notification to that instructor outside of the TMS? You have to remember, I've assigned this instructor. So now I'm able to say, boom, I can click on it, I can assign it, and they instantly get notification that they've been assigned. And then operations manager, maybe you need to know when a course assignment has been completed, or when has an account been done, who has created the account. So those are really, really quick and simple automated notifications that I think you'll find useful as you start. But those are to kind of give you a guideline that when you go into the system, you can go, hey, let me see some other ideas. I remember Bev mentioning X, Y, and Z, but I'm interested to see if this is available. So these are some notifications that I think you'll find helpful as you start this process. The documentation that we have in the TMS will also help and guide you along. But these are just a quick one. I'm going to lay it out there again and say, does anyone have any questions? If you would like me to show you on the back end a little bit of how that notification is built, talking about some of the points, like I said, that add, maybe you want to see what does replacement tokens look like, the replacement texts, please feel free, unmute. I'm happy to help you walk through anything. Maybe, if you've got an idea and you're not really sure, Jane, myself, and Krista will be happy to help you maybe kind of figure it out in your head. I'm going to lay the floor open. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you're interested in learning a little bit more. Any questions we can answer. We don't really have any questions and demos. I'm just going to go through this piece, and then I'll show you just maybe the back end just to help if you want to see that in action. There is join us for Ask the Expert. You can go ahead and you can join us. You can add the session at skillable.info/launch-Q2, or you can email us at events@skillable. Please, if you can, go in and again fill that in evaluation in. That way it helps me grow and get better, hopefully get better as time goes on. If you enjoyed the session, it means a world to me if you could go in and tag us on social media, anything with @Skillable, and then any questions you might have email us at events@skillable.com. I did see, okay, one, let me take a minute to digest your question. Let me see if you can Almost all of our courses taught in Spanish, and all the notifications are already set up in Spanish. I, however, have enough courses in English using groups. The groups add certain courses that I create and essentially send notifications in English, but I have not been able to avoid sending it in Spanish as well. Solution, create a group, courses in Spanish. The problem is with that course, I have created in the TMS. Those that use V Labs, is all in case it is a very fun solution. Any ideas? So you have notifications set up both in English and in Spanish, and they're two separate, if I'm understanding that correctly. And you're wanting to understand if there's a way to be able to only have it as one. So it's one notification, but it sends it in Spanish and it sends it in English.
So, Beth, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I know it's a difficult question because really I have been fighting with it. I have found solutions, but none of the solutions is a really great or very good solution because the problem is with the course I create, there is no problem because when I create a course, I provide the outline. I provide, in this case, it's easy for me because I can add this course. I can add to a group that is delivered in English and another group delivered in Spanish, for example. And this is a possibility with the notifications, right? But the problem is that the course that are already created in Teams. For example, if I have an Azure class, I am using this course, and there is nothing that I can use to indicate or to take the difference if is delivered in Spanish or is delivered in English. Do you understand? Right now, why I am using because the problem is that okay, I prefer to send more mails than necessary than not send the mail. Okay, so in this moment, what I'm doing, I have just created a group that is course in English and a special course that I create that are to be delivered in English with the outline in English, the contents. I add to this group and I have the for example, in this case, I send the notification in Spanish and I have also created another notification that if the classes in this group send in English. Okay, right. The only problem is that the student receives two notifications, Spanish and English, but this is good for me. But the problem is that this is not valid for the classes that are created in the TMs. The problem is that the notification are using the well, I think that they are using few triggers. The great solution will be to have a trigger that was the possibility to use, or even a trigger that was asking for the language, or for a custom course. If the trigger have the option to use a custom course, custom field, that would be great. But this will be good for all. Okay, you can create, for example, a separated field, custom field that is delivery language and two options, English and Spanish, or more options, including for other people. For example, in Germany, will be very useful. As they have more variety of languages. That was my question. More than a question, what was a suggestion? Okay, that could be a very good improvement of the platform.
I thought your suggestion of a delivery language being one of the filters for the class once you're is a really good suggestion. And it probably should be in there. So we could write that into our, idea suggestions, and get that in front of our development team. I think that actually is a very good Very good idea.
As I say, at the moment I have solved in this way, and right now, well, I am sending all people notification in Spanish. The same, the same when they start the class to notify the they are included in the class, and also the thank you for attending before. I always say in Spanish, and in the case of these classes that have a grade and are in the group of English, I send another one in English. Well, people, maybe that people out of the Spain are more comprehensive, because if they receive an Spanish communication and English communication, they have no problem. But here in Spain, if they receive an English communication, oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
at the moment,
absolutely.
I'm trying, and it's a pity because it's not as automatic as I would like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're saying is pretty spot on. It'd be nice to have it. I do know that the language is can be set, but obviously if the message is written in one language, it'd be nice for it to be able to be translated into the right language. So I agree with Jane. This is a really super important one.
I know, it's complicated, but another solution that is, for example, is just as is a trigger that is the classroom is a virtual classroom. It's the trigger of the delivery language. There is a list. It's implemented in the TNS. This list, okay, it's a terrible and long list, but usually we don't change. We, and I suppose that any other center change this. The people that deliver in English has set that by default USA English or United Kingdom English, something similar. But nobody uses more than two languages, obviously. So,
yeah.
Well, there will be no problem. We have the possibility of throw this trigger if the delivery language is, and just the possibility to select. I think that all the center will create one option notification, no more, as a translation. Okay.
I think it's a really good idea. It's interesting, and that's why we like these topics, is because sometimes there's things in here that we don't really often think about. And that's one of those things that we didn't think about that actually is really useful and very, like I say, it helps when you guys build them, design them, and send them out. So I think that's a really great idea that you proposed to us, and one we've taken note on, and we'll definitely get that added in, conversations back internally to see how can we make this work. And that's awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, thanks to you. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's neat. Do you use a lot of notifications, or is it one-offs, or you play it in the platform?
Sorry, I closed my microphone. Yes, I use Extensive, and it's a very good tool in the platform. Have a lot of possibilities, but obviously the most obvious is just to notify the students. They are sorry that I have the translation of the TNs, and I sometimes I forget the word in English. But okay, when they have to enjoy the meeting, we have also a reminder that sent 1 hour in advance to the start the class, sent again another mail. That's very useful, and the people like, because this is the way they have in front the access data, because most of the people don't try or don't test the access till last moment. Okay, and we have automated also the thank you for attendance notification, and it's great. It's very useful. And also for for example, we just use for canceling classes or students for enrollment cancel. We use only for the open enrollment classes, because delicate classes are very useful. The client is changing till last moment the lease, but in the open courses, okay, the calendar course is very, very useful. Okay, if there is a cancellation, okay, automatically receives the account executive the mail. Is very, very great.
Awesome. That's good to hear that you have different ways to utilize them and that you're able to implement them. I'm sure it saves you plenty of time than doing it as a manual process.
Right.
So, and it seems like you use a lot of both the action-based and time-based triggers, which is neat because like I say, a lot of people don't use they use one or the other. So it's nice to be able to hear people use both of them, which is great.
Right.
I am going to put Jane on the spot though for a second, which I'm sure she probably
Sure.
appreciates. Is there any notifications that you have seen over the years that are unique and what you were kind of wowed by, impressed by, so that anything that we may have take away from here?
We did do a notification. I mentioned this to you just earlier, was because for Azure, so we had the specific courses set that anytime that course was set, we would send to an operations manager and the instructor, so they knew what they had to have in advance in order to make sure the class would run, because there were passes. And sometimes people would show up and they'd never bought passes for their students or those kinds of things, which was a really big help for customer frustration to go down for us. I don't know, I've seen, they have a lot of, some of our customers have used them extensively, and in terms of just, when we got the time notifications, that was a huge deal. That was just really exciting to be able to say, remind an instructor that in a week that they would have this class to teach, remind students, an hour, a day before class they were coming, and an hour after class they have a survey to fill out or thank them for attending. It was just a really great additive.
Yeah, we are also using the surveys included in the TNS, and that's great because you can remind them. Thank you for attending. Here you can download your certificate, your proof of attendance. Here you have the access to the recordings. Here you have the materials, the results the trainer have shared with you in the class. It's really great. It's really great.
Mm-hmm.
And as usual, my comment is because we have not, obviously, I don't speak, so as you can see, I don't speak very, very good English, but all people, all technical staff of the trainers have no problem with the mail or the information in English. But the problem here is that the students is terrible. It's still terrible. We can send nothing in English because they are complaining at the moment. Okay, and that's a complication sometimes. But really, the platform has a lot of possibilities. I really love.
Tracy, I see you.
Yeah.
Comment question.
One question I have is, so when a notification is automated, is there a way for the sender to be able to go back and see what emails went out to who and when?
Okay, that's a good question.
Find set notifications. You can either do it by class or by organization.
Okay.
You are able to go into the platform. Let me go ahead and do this. You see my screen.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you can see you can find your notification. You can create them. This one, this is what I was saying about the ad. And you can find which notifications have also been sent. I'm not going to press it because it's going to show me everyone here's sent notifications in our system. But yeah, you can add these filters: who, where, when, how long ago, and you can have a little look. More, let me see. Take this off for a second and see if I can find a organization that you can. You can look at like the status. Was it sent, delivered? Was it? Is it in a queue to go out? When it was sent out. Trying to find one that's got from one of our organizations. I'm not sure if we have one set up.
It's nice to have that feature, 'cause sometimes with the automation, you can set it and forget it, and then need to go back and reference from time to time.
Yes. So as you can see here, I was notified. So actually, this is based on one of the subscriptions I sent this morning when I was playing around. Is you can see I have a subscription. Here's the information. You can see the stats of it, the message that was sent, which is really cool. So yeah, you can have a little bit look at what's being sent out and what's ready to go out. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And you can also have like, if a user says, "Hey, I didn't receive it," you can go in there and you can send it again as well, if that's the case.
Okay.
And that kind of concludes our notifications.